I always thought that old age would look different. I imagined myself in a rocking chair on a wide veranda, with a book in one hand and a cup of tea in the other, the same old husband next to her, grandchildren visiting on weekends, and the kids calling every night, like a life insurance commercial. But Albert died 3 years ago, and my old age is more like an endless series of chores that no one notices as long as they are done. My name is Juliana Barrows. I'm 67, and I live in Citra Heights, a town that looks beautiful only on postcards and in advertising brochures. I moved here after my husband died, selling our house in Westfield. A big house for one woman means too much cleaning, too many empty rooms, and too many memories with nowhere to go. My son suggested I move closer to them. Mom, you need family close by, Randall said, and I believed it. I invested the money from the sale of our house with Albert in the purchase of a guest house on Randall and Chloe's property. It was a two-bedroom with a kitchen and a private porch, not the one I'd dreamed of. But still, Randall helped me with the paperwork. I didn't even wonder at the time why he insisted that the house be recorded as part of the main property. Grandma Juliana, can I have more cookies? Ethan, my youngest grandson, tugs on my sleeve, pulling me from my thoughts. Sure, sweetie, I answer, pulling out a tin box from the top shelf. Just don't tell Mom, he whispers, glancing back at the door. She said sweets only after dinner. I nod conspiratorially. Small acts of rebellion are the only luxury I can afford in this family. Chloe thinks I'm spoiling the kids. Maybe she's right, but isn't that what grandmothers are supposed to do? Randall and I live in a quiet neighborhood, streets of identical two-story cottages, neat lawns, neighbors who nod politely but never visit. Randall works as a building inspector. Chloe is a receptionist at an insurance company. An ordinary family on the face of it. The problem started about 6 months after I moved in. First, there was the requirement to help with the mortgage a bit. Chloe's premiums had been cut. Then, unexpected dental expenses for the kids. Then, a new roof for the garage after the storm. Then, a private school for Alice, my oldest granddaughter, because she's not going to fulfill her potential at a regular school. It's only temporary, Mom, Randall said every time. As soon as we got through this, I'd get it all back. I believed. I gave some of my savings, and then some more, and then some more. I couldn't say no to my only son. I felt like by helping them, I was buying myself a place in this family. Stupid, I know. Looking back now, I realize I was just being used. Juliana, could you pick up the kids from school today? I have an appointment at the beautician's. Chloe stands in the doorway of my cabin, flawless as always. Flowing blouse, high-heeled shoes, hair-styled hair to hair. Sure, I answer, not lifting my eyes from the rose bushes I'm transplanting into pots. What time? 2 o'clock, Ethan. 4 o'clock, Alice from tennis. And if it's not too much trouble, make something for dinner. Randall and I are going to be late. She says it like she's doing me a favor, letting me take care of her kids and cook dinner for her family. I nod. What else am I supposed to do? I used to have my own business, a small landscaping firm. Albert and I started it together, worked together. After he died, I couldn't keep it going. Too many memories, too many decisions to make alone. I sold the business to an old partner for half of what it was worth. Another decision I regret now. I tried to find a job in Citrus Heights, but who needs a landscaper at 64? The most I was offered was part-time at a garden store with minimum wage. I turned it down. Pride? Maybe. But back then I still had savings and thought I could afford to be useful to my son's family. Now, 3 years later, there's nothing left of my savings. Randall and Chloe keep temporarily taking money from me. The last time was a new SUV for Randall. An executive car is important for career advancement, Mom. I gave him the money I had set aside to repair the roof on my cabin. Now, when it rains, I put basins under the leaks and listen to the drops count down my remaining savings. It's funny, but Chloe is always complaining about the lack of money. It's so hard to make ends meet, she says as she tries on a new designer bag. The prices are crazy, she sighs, ordering another delivery of ready-to-eat food instead of cooking dinner herself. And Randall? My son has changed. Or maybe I just finally saw the real him. The boy Albert and I raised with so much love has turned into a man who looks at his own mother like an ATM machine. Sometimes, in rare moments of sincerity, I see glimpses of the old Randall, but they fade quickly, especially when Chloe's around. Grandma, help me with my report on dinosaurs. Ethan climbs into the chair next to me while I'm cooking dinner. Sure thing, sunshine. Let's see what you've got there. I help my grandson with his homework, chopping vegetables for the stew. I cook for six, Randall and Chloe, the two kids, me, and a just-in-case portion in case someone asks for more. Randall usually does. Chloe watches her figure and eats like a bird, defiantly pushing her plate away. It's too fatty, Juliana, and too many carbs, she'll say tonight, as she says almost every time, but still expects dinner to be on the table when she gets home. In the evening, when the kids are in bed and I'm doing the dishes, I hear Randall and Chloe discussing buying a season ticket to the country club. $600 a month, but it's worth it, Chloe says. All the important people in town go there. It's for your career, honey. But we already have plenty of loans, Randall objects, although in his voice you can already hear the surrender of positions. We could borrow from your mother, Chloe suggests, lowering her voice, but not enough. She's only saving money anyway. Why would she need it at her age? I freeze with a plate in my hands. Hoarding? If only they knew I only have a few thousand left in my account. Barely enough to fix the roof, let alone other expenses. I don't know. We've already taken so much from her. Stop it, Chloe interrupts him. She's your mother. It's her duty to help. Besides, she lives in our house practically for free. I almost dropped my plate. In their house? For free? I paid for this house in full, but, technically, on the deed, it's part of their property. Randall insisted on that wording when he bought it to avoid extra taxes. Yeah, you're right, Randall finally agreed. I'll talk to her tomorrow. I quietly turn off the water and tiptoe out of the kitchen. I don't want them to know I heard them talking. Back in my cabin, I sit down at my small desk and pull out my bank statements. The numbers don't get any bigger, no matter how much I look at them. My finances are coming to an end. And then what? Become even more dependent on my son and daughter-in-law, who already see me as a burden? Outside the window, the wind rattles the branches of the apple tree I planted the first year I moved in. Then I was full of hope for a new life near my family. Now that apple tree is my only friend in Citrus Heights. I tend to the orchard, cook, clean, babysit my grandchildren, give away my savings, and every day I feel more invisible. When did it start? I ask myself, looking at Albert's picture on the table. When did my son start taking me for granted? When did caring become an obligation? When did I become an ATM instead of a mother? Maybe it was my own fault. For too long I let them treat me like this, too afraid of being alone, without a family. But the truth is, I'm already alone. Even being around them every day, I feel more alone than when I lived alone in our old house. Something has to change. I can't keep living like this, watching my savings melt away and the respect for me long ago evaporate. But what can I do at my age, with almost no money and with the feeling that the best part of my life is behind me? I close the folder of financial documents and glance at the clock. It's 12:30. Tomorrow Randall is coming to ask for money for his country club. What am I going to tell him? The morning started with a phone call. I just had time to make tea when my cell phone blared the ringtone I'd set for calls from the bank. I never liked those calls, especially lately. Mrs. Burrows? A polite female voice asked. This is the First National Bank of Citrus Heights. We would like to inform you that your balance has fallen below the minimum threshold. According to the terms of your account, this will incur additional fees. I pinched the bridge of my nose and closed my eyes. Thank you for the information. I'll replenish my account today. That's fine, Mrs. Burrows. Have a good day. Have a good day. As if that's possible after news like that. I put the phone away and opened my laptop to check my account status. Maybe there was a mistake. $3,422.17. Not a mistake, just harsh reality. I walked to the bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of the dresser. Beneath a stack of old letters and postcards lay a cherry wood jewelry box that Albert had made with his own hands. Inside, on a velvet cushion, rested his gold pocket watch, a family heirloom passed down in his family from father to son for 3 generations. The cover was engraved, "Time is precious when spent with love." A B. Albert had planned to give them to Randall for his 30th birthday, but didn't live to see them, and I was saving them for Ethan when he grew up. I ran my finger over the engraving, and for a moment I thought I felt my husband's presence. What would you do if you were me, Albert? I mentally asked. There was no answer, of course, but I knew he would never allow himself to be used, not even by his own son. The decision had been made. I carefully wrapped the watch in a soft cloth and put it in my bag. Albert wanted this family heirloom to stay in the family, but it seemed our family was no longer the same as it had been when he was alive. The Golden Age Jewelry Store was located in the older part of Citrus Heights, 2 bus stops from our house. The owner, an older man with a magnifying glass on a chain around his neck, scrutinized the watch. Nice work, he murmured. Swiss movement, 19th century. And it's remarkably well preserved. It works, I said. My husband always kept an eye on it. I can offer 7,000, the jeweler said after a moment's thought. I knew they were worth more, but I also knew that I didn't have the time or energy to look for another buyer. 8, I said firmly, and I'd like cash. He looked at me over his glasses, as if assessing my resolve, then nodded. Deal. As I walked out of the store with an envelope full of cash, I felt a strange mixture of relief and guilt. This money would solve my immediate problems, but at what cost? Albert would probably roll over in his grave if he knew I'd sold a family heirloom. But on the other hand, he'd roll over again to know how his son was treating me. On my way to the bus stop, I passed a convenience store mini-mart. A brightly colored sign hung on the door. Lottery jackpot 45 million. Buy your ticket today. I'd never played the lottery. Albert always said it was a tax on dreams and poor math skills. But today, with an envelope of money in my bag and the feeling that I had just sold a piece of my soul, I felt like dreaming a little. I went inside and approached the cash register. 1 lottery ticket, please. The cashier, a girl with bright pink hair and lots of piercings, smiled. Is this your first time playing? She asked, noticing my confusion in front of the lottery terminal. Yeah, I'm usually more sensible, I replied with an awkward smile. Don't worry, she said with a wink. We have a lot of winners here. Let me help you. She explained how everything worked and suggested I use my store club card to register my ticket. It will make it easier to claim your winnings if you're lucky, she explained. I filled out the card, selecting birth dates for Albert, Randall, and the grandchildren. Naive, but it felt right. After paying with $5, I got the ticket and stashed it in my purse, feeling a little silly. $5 wasn't a big price to pay for the opportunity to dream of a better life, even if those dreams never came true. At home, I divided the money from the watch sale into two parts. I put the larger one in my bank account to avoid fees and to have a reserve in case Randall came to ask for money. I hid the smaller one in a tin cookie box in the kitchen cabinet, my secret rainy day reserve. My intuition told me that day might come sooner than I thought. After lunch, I was watering the roses on my little porch when Randall and Chloe's voices came from the open window of the main house. They apparently thought I'd gone to the store, as I usually do on Fridays. "Did you talk to her about the money?" Chloe asked. "I haven't had a chance yet," Randall answered. "I was going to today, after work." "Don't drag it out," Chloe insisted. "We need to make the down payment for the club by the end of the week to get the discount." "I know." I could hear irritation in Randall's voice. "It's just, I don't know. I don't think my mom has much left. Maybe we should look for other options." I felt a twinge of hope inside me for a moment. Maybe he does understand something after all. "Other options?" Minus Chloe snorted. "Like what? Another loan? We've got plenty of those already." "Look, your mother is sitting on the money from the sale of the house. Even if she spent some of it, there should be enough left over. Besides, it's not forever. Once you get promoted, if she gets promoted," Randall interrupted her, "it's not that simple. With your talent for sucking up to your superiors," Minus Chloe laughed. "Of course they will, especially if we're in the right circles. That's what the club is for." There was a pause, and I thought the conversation was over when Randall spoke again, quieter but clear enough. "And what if she says no?" "She won't," Chloe said confidently. "She never refuses. The old woman is too afraid to be alone. Besides, where will she go? It's our house. Technically, she's paid for her share," Randall reminded her. "Technically," Chloe mocked him. "It's all in your name. She lives here because we let her, and she knows it." I gripped the pruning shears so tight my knuckles turned white. The rosebush I'd trimmed suddenly seemed as truncated and limited as my life here. "Okay," Randall gave up. "I'll talk to her tonight, but don't expect too much. This ATM is on its last legs." They laughed, and I heard the door close. They'd obviously left the room. I stood frozen with the pruner in my hand, feeling hot tears running down my cheeks. The ATM was on its last breath. This is what I had become to my son. Not a mother who sacrificed everything for him. Not a person with feelings, dreams, dignity. An ATM, a money dispensing machine that was now almost empty. I wiped away my tears and went back into the house, trying not to make any noise. I didn't want them to know I'd heard, not right now. I needed time to think things through. Inside, I pulled a lottery ticket out of my purse and stared at it for a long time. A stupid dream, bought for $5. But right now, that dream was the only thing that belonged to me alone. I tucked the ticket into the same tin box that held my cash savings and pushed it farther into the closet. Then I washed my hands and started cooking dinner as if nothing had happened, as if my heart hadn't been broken by my own son's words. At 7 o'clock that evening, as usual, I set the table in the main house. Randall came home from work, and we sat down to dinner, an outwardly normal family. Chloe asked the kids about school. Randall talked about his difficult day at work, and I served the food and made polite conversation. But inside me, everything was boiling. Every time Randall smiled at me, I heard him say, "A TM is on its last breath." Every time Chloe asked me to pass the salt, I remembered, "The old lady is too afraid to be alone." After dinner, when the kids had gone to do their homework and Chloe had gone to watch her favorite show, Randall offered me tea on the veranda. I knew what would follow, but I agreed. Let him think I still didn't suspect anything. "Mother," he began as we sat down in the wicker chairs with cups of tea, "I wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course, dear." I replied with a smile that I hoped he took to be genuine. What was it? He talked about the country club, about career opportunities, about the importance of investing in the future. It all sounded so fake that I had a hard time keeping a serious expression on my face. Anyway, Mom, he summarized, we need $6,000 for the annual fee. I wouldn't have asked for it, but you know how hard finances are right now. I looked at my son, a handsome, charming man who had once been the little boy who kissed me before bed and brought me wildflowers on Mother's Day. What has become of him? Or was he always like that and I just didn't want to see? I don't have 6,000, Randall, I said calmly. He blinked, clearly not expecting that answer. What do you mean you don't? What about the money from the sale of the house? From the business? It's gone. I took a sip of my tea. The mortgage, Alice's school, your SUV, roof repairs after the storm. The list goes on and on. But, he stammered, there must be something left. There's 3 grand in the account, I said. And I need to fix the roof on my cabin. We fixed yours before, remember? Randall looked like I'd kicked him in the butt. His face was alternating between disbelief, disappointment, and something akin to panic. Mom, you don't understand how important this is to us. For my career, for the children's future. I do, I said, but I can't give what I don't have. How about a loan? He suggested hopefully. Against the house? I shook my head. At my age, banks are reluctant to lend, especially without a steady income. Shit, he swore, forgetting his manners. What are we going to do now? It struck me that he didn't even ask how I was going to live with such meager means. His thoughts were all about the club, which they couldn't afford. Why don't we put it off till later? I suggested. When the financial situation improved. Randall threw a look of annoyance at me. You can't put off opportunities. The new board of directors in the company is being formed right now, and if I'm not in the right circles. He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. His career came first, even if it meant squeezing the last of his mother's juices to advance it. I'm sorry, Randall, I said sincerely. I'd help if I could. He stood up, hardly able to hide his disappointment. Okay, we'll figure something out. Good night, Mom. Without even finishing his tea, he went into the house, leaving me alone on the veranda. I sat in silence, listening to the crickets chirping and looking up at the stars. For the first time in a long time, I felt not guilt or fear, but a strange relief. It was as if by saying no, I was finally beginning to regain control of my own life. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the lottery ticket hidden in the tin box. A silly dream, of course. The chances of winning are slim to none. But what if? What if fate had finally decided to smile on me? What would I do with that kind of money? I'd buy my own house where no one could kick me out. Travel. Maybe open a small flower store, not for the money, but for my soul. I'd help people who really appreciate the help, not feel they owe it. With these thoughts, I fell asleep, not realizing that the universe was already preparing an answer to my unspoken prayers. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of the television from the main house. The news announcer was cheerfully announcing the results of last night's lottery. I froze, listening. And the winning combination, ladies and gentlemen, 17, 21, 29, 36, 41, and 47. Those numbers jogged my memory. I think I picked similar numbers. But coincidence is unlikely, isn't it? I got out of bed and threw on my robe and hurried to the kitchen. The cookie box was in its place in the back of the cabinet. I reached in, opened it, and pulled out the lottery ticket I'd bought yesterday on impulse. 17 was Albert's birthday. 21 was our wedding day. 29 is Randall's birthday. 36 is the age I started my business. 41 is the day Alice was born. 47 was the number of the house where Albert and I had lived our entire lives. My fingers trembled as I brought the ticket closer to my eyes, not believing what I was seeing. All the numbers matched, every single one. I sank down in my chair, feeling my knees buckle. That's impossible. These things happen to other people, not me. I sat like that for probably 10 minutes, staring stupidly at the ticket and trying to comprehend what had happened. $45 million, dollars, a sum that could have completely changed my life. No more humiliation, no more asking for help, no more dependence on Randall and Chloe. Dozens of thoughts raced through my head. What to do, who to tell, how to get the winnings. But one thought was breaking through the chaos. Randall mustn't know, not now, not after he called me a last-ditch ATM machine, not after all these years of taking and never giving back. I folded the ticket neatly and stashed it in a hidden pocket of my old travel bag. I need to think things through before I make any decisions. All day I walked around like a fog. I cooked breakfast, cleaned, watered the flowers, all mechanically, like a robot. Inside, I was so full of emotions that I was afraid to explode. Joy, disbelief, fear, excitement, and, to my shame, gloating at the thought of how Randall and Chloe's faces would change when they found out. I knew I needed to consult a lawyer before claiming my winnings. And for that, I had to come up with an excuse to get out of the house without any questions. After lunch, Chloe called. "Julianne, could you pick Ethan up from practice? I have an important meeting with a client, and Randall's running late." I said yes when I saw an opportunity. After picking up my grandson, I made a small detour and stopped at the library. "Grandma, why are we here?" Ethan asked. "I need to find out some things for my gardening project," I lied. "Would you wait for me for a minute? You can choose a book." In a quiet corner of the library at the computer, I found information on how to deal with winners of big lotteries. The advice was practical. Remain anonymous for as long as possible. Consult a financial advisor and a lawyer, and don't make any hasty decisions. I wrote down several phone numbers of law firms specializing in such matters. In the evening, after dinner, when everyone had gone about their business, I locked myself in my cabin and called one of these firms. The receptionist made an appointment for me for a consultation in 2 days. I hung up, feeling conspiratorial about my own life. Never before had I had secrets of this magnitude. The next morning started with a loud knock on the door. I opened it and saw Randall, pale and anxious. "Mom, I need your help right away." I invited him in and put the kettle on. Randall paced my small kitchen, clearly out of place. "What's wrong?" I asked, even though I already knew. "I'm in trouble," he breathed out. "Serious problems. Remember that loan I took out for the SUV? Turns out there were hidden fees, and now the bank demands immediate repayment or they'll confiscate the car. And without the car, I can't work." Same old story. I've heard it dozens of times. Normally, at this point, I would have already pulled out my checkbook to help my son out, but this was different. "How much?" I asked. $2,500, he answered, looking down at the floor. "I know you said you had almost nothing left, but this is really an emergency." I sighed. "I only have $3,000 in my account, and I need to repair the roof." "Mom, please." Tears appeared in his eyes, and for a moment I saw him as the little boy I had once comforted after falling off his bike. "I'll pay you back, I promise, as soon as I get my bonus next month." I knew there would be no bonus, or it would be spent on something else, more important at that moment, but I also knew that I would soon have $45 million. I could afford to help him one last time. "Okay," I said. "I'll wire the money today." The gratitude on his face lasted exactly until the money was in his account. After that, he returned to his usual demeanor of polite disregard. That evening, I was cooking dinner when I heard the sound of the door opening. Randall walked into the kitchen. "Hi, Mom. I just stopped by to see if you needed anything from the store." That was unusual. He wasn't usually interested in my needs. "Thanks, honey, but I'm all set," I replied, chopping vegetables. "Okay." He walked around the kitchen as if looking around the room. "What are we having for dinner?" "Roast vegetables and mashed potatoes," I said without turning around. Something in his demeanor made me uneasy. "Sounds great. Chloe's going to be late tonight, so I can have dinner with you." Another oddity. Randall never had dinner with me when Chloe wasn't home. "Sure, honey. I'll just put the roast in the oven." As I leaned over to open the oven door, I caught a glimpse of Randall opening one of my kitchen cabinets. "Looking for something?" I asked, straightening up. "Dash, huh?" "No, just, looking to see if you need any new dishes. This one looks pretty old." I frowned. Randall had never been interested in the condition of my dishes. "It's perfectly serviceable," I said dryly, "and I'm used to it." He smiled awkwardly and continued wandering around the kitchen, opening drawers and cabinets from time to time. I watched him, pretending to be busy cooking. Suddenly, it hit me. He's looking for money. He thinks I keep cash somewhere in the house, and he wants to find it. But my tin box with the rest of my money and my lucky lottery ticket was now safely tucked away in my bedroom in a hidden pocket of an old travel bag. Let him look for it. After dinner, at which Randall was unusually sweet and attentive, he helped me with the dishes and finally left. I locked the door and breathed a sigh of relief. Something told me that this would not be his last visit for such a purpose. The next day, I planned to visit the lawyer, but in the morning, Chloe asked me to watch the kids. The school was quarantined because of some virus. I couldn't refuse without arousing suspicion. I spent the whole day with my grandchildren, trying to be attentive, but my thoughts kept coming back to the hidden ticket. In the evening, Chloe returned, and soon after, Randall. He looked tense and annoyed. "Mom, could you make dinner quicker? Chloe and I have plans tonight." I nodded and headed for the kitchen. Randall followed me. "Do you need help?" he asked, starting to open drawers and cabinets again. "No thanks, I'm fine," I replied, watching him. "Are you looking for something?" "No, just wanted to be helpful." He smiled awkwardly and walked out of the kitchen. I quickly made pasta and sauce, set the table, and called everyone to dinner. During the meal, Randall and Chloe exchanged meaningful glances, but didn't say anything. After dinner, I gathered the dishes and started to wash them when I heard footsteps behind me. "Dash, dash, Mom." Randall's voice sounded strange. "What is it?" I turned around and froze. He was holding my lottery ticket. "Where did you get this?" I asked, feeling the blood drain from my face. "In your travel bag." He wasn't even embarrassed to admit that he'd been going through my things. "I was looking for the deeds to the house to see if there was any way I could get a loan against it. And I found this." He waved the ticket. "Did you run the plates? It's a ticket from yesterday's draw, right?" I was silent, not knowing what to say. "I did," he continued, his voice shaking with excitement. "All the numbers match, Mom. Every single one. It's the winning ticket for 45 million. Chloe entered the kitchen, attracted by her husband's excited voice. "What's going on?" "Mom won the lottery," exclaimed Randall, showing her the ticket. 45 million. Chloe's eyes widened, and she looked from the ticket to me, then back to the ticket. "You're kidding," she exhaled. "Not at all. Look," he showed her the numbers. "I checked 3 times." Oh my God. Chloe pressed her hand to her chest. Oh my God. I was leaning against the sink, feeling like I was watching from the outside. Like in slow motion, I watched their faces change from shock to joy, from joy to greed. "Randall," I finally said, "give me my ticket back, please." He looked at me as if he'd only just realized I was there. Why? He asked with a slight chuckle. So you'd lose it? You can't be trusted with such important things at your age. It's my ticket, I said firmly. I bought it with my own money. What money, Mom? His voice became creepy. The one I've been giving you all these years? The money you got when you sold the house you bought with your father's money? I sold Albert's watch to buy that ticket, I said, feeling anger rising inside. The one that was supposed to go to Ethan. And you did the right thing, Chloe suddenly intervened. What good is an old watch? And with this money? She rolled her eyes dreamily. Give me the ticket back, I repeated, holding out my hand. Now, Randall and Chloe looked at each other, and something in their gazes made me cringe. I think you should sit down, Mom, Randall said, pointing to a chair. We need to have a serious talk. I don't have anything to talk to you about until you return my ticket. I continued to stand, though my legs were starting to shake. Mom, Randall sighed as if explaining something to an uncomprehending child. You don't understand. This money, it's going to change our lives. Our whole lives. We'll be able to move to a better neighborhood. The kids will go to better schools. We'll start new businesses. What about me? I asked. That's my ticket, my winnings. Of course, Mom. His voice became soft, soothing. Of course we'll take care of you. You won't need anything. Give me the ticket back, Randall. I tried to speak firmly, but my voice trembled. He shook his head. I can't. You're too old to manage that kind of money. You don't know how to invest, how to protect yourself from scammers. I'll keep it in a safe place. Randall is right, Juliana. Chloe supported him. At your age, you don't start a new life, and we are young. We have children, a future. If you don't return my ticket, I'll call the police, I said, pulling out my phone. Randall laughed. And what will you tell them? That your son took the lottery ticket he found in your house? In the house, which, by the way, is in my name? It's a family dispute, Mom, not a crime. I knew he was right. With no proof of purchase papers, I had no proof. It's theft, I said, feeling a lump come up in my throat. It's caring, Randall countered. We care about you like you once cared about us. Tears came to my eyes, but I held them back. Give me my ticket back, I said one last time. Enough, suddenly shouted Chloe, losing patience. We don't need your pennies anymore. Just go away, old woman. We are rich now, do you understand? Boga you. I recoiled, struck by her fury. Chloe, Randall said, don't do that. How do I do it? She turned to him. How many times do you have to show off? Tell her the truth. We don't need her pitiful handouts anymore. We can afford everything we've ever dreamed of. And if she doesn't want to be a part of it, let her go. Randall remained silent, not looking at me. At that moment, I realized that he agreed with his wife, but he just didn't dare say it out loud. I'm leaving, I said, heading for the door. But no, this isn't over. Oh, it is, Chloe grinned. The end of your power over us. The end of your manipulations. Get out and don't come back. I left the kitchen, feeling my legs shaking. In the bedroom, I started to gather the essentials when I heard the key turn in the front door lock. They had locked me in. I rushed to the door and started banging. Open up! You have no right to lock me in. We're just giving you time to cool off and pack your things, came Randall's voice. We'll talk again in the morning, when things have calmed down. I realized they were just buying time to decide what to do about the ticket. They might try to get the winnings without me in the morning. I spent a sleepless night hearing them walking around the house, arguing, discussing something. In the morning, the door did open, but not for long. Randall brought me breakfast and informed me that he and Chloe had decided that it would be best for me to move into a nursing home. We already found a great place, Mom. They're going to take better care of you than we could. I'm not moving anywhere, I said firmly. This is my home. I paid for it. Technically, it's part of our property, he reminded me, and we've decided you don't belong here anymore. As he walked away, I heard the key turn in the lock again. I was a prisoner in my own home. In the afternoon, Ethan came in, knocked on the window. Grandma, why are you locked out? Mommy said you weren't feeling well. I'm fine, sweetie, I answered through the glass. It's just that your parents and we have a little misunderstanding. Mom said we're going to be rich and move into a big house with a pool, he said. Are you coming with us? I did not have time to answer. Chloe came out of the main house and sharply called my son. Ethan, get away from the grandmother's window. I told you, she needs to rest. When it got dark, I decided to act. Using a kitchen knife, I was able to open the back window and climb out through it. With a small bag of belongings, I quietly walked around the house and headed for the gate. But then the porch light came on, and I saw Randall. Going somewhere, Mom? He asked me. I'm leaving, Randall, I replied. And don't try to stop me. I won't, he shrugged. I just wanted to tell you that the locks on your cabin have already been changed, so there's no point in coming back. I stared at my son, not recognizing him. Where had the boy I'd raised with so much love gone? When did he turn into this cold, calculating man? Goodbye, Randall, I said. I hope this money brings you what you truly deserve. I turned and walked away, tears streaming down my cheeks. Behind me was a part of my life, my home, my belongings. But ahead was the unknown and the determination to fight for what was rightfully mine. The Pine Breeze Motel didn't live up to its name. There were no pine trees nearby, and the only breeze came from the old air conditioner, which spat out moldy-smelling air with a wheeze. The room I rented was small and dreary, a double bed with a sagging mattress, a nightstand with a cracked lamp, a TV with only 3 channels, and a bathroom the size of a closet. I dumped the contents of my bag on the bed, everything I'd grabbed before I left. A few changes of clothes, toiletries, a photo album, medications, and $1,800 in cash, what was left of my savings. At my age, starting from scratch seemed almost impossible. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I finally allowed myself to do what I couldn't do in the cab. Cry for real. Muffled sobs shook my body as I mourned not so much the loss of the money as the betrayal of my son. How could he do such a thing? How could he kick his own mother out, steal from her, rob her of a roof over her head? And for what? For money he hadn't even earned. After crying for maybe an hour, I felt strangely empty. The tears dried up, leaving behind determination. I wasn't going to give up. My ticket, my winnings, and I wasn't going to let Randall and Chloe steal that from me, too. The next morning, I went to the police station. The officer on duty, a young man with tired eyes, listened to my story with professional patience. I understand your situation, Mrs. Barrows, he said when I had finished, but without proof that the ticket belongs to you, we can't classify it as theft. But I bought it. With my own money, I objected. Do you have a receipt for the purchase? Or witnesses? I shook my head. Who keeps receipts for lottery tickets? And who could verify that I'd bought one except the pink-haired cashier, whom I wasn't likely to find? In that case, it's a family dispute. The officer spread his hands. Your son claims he found the ticket in his house. You claim it's yours. Without proof, we can't interfere. What about eviction? I didn't give up. They kicked me out of my own house. The house is in your name? I remembered how Randall had convinced me to list the guest house as part of the main property. To avoid unnecessary taxes, he said. How naive I was. No, I admitted. Technically, it belongs to my son. Then it's out of our jurisdiction, too. The officer looked genuinely sympathetic. You should see a family law attorney. I walked out of the station feeling completely powerless. The law wasn't on my side, and I didn't have money for a lawyer. It seemed like Randall had thought of everything, depriving me of the chance to fight. Back at the motel, I turned on the TV to take my mind off my dark thoughts. The local station was just showing the news, and the anchor woman was talking about the latest lottery drawing. The $45 million jackpot is still unclaimed, she reported from the screen. Lottery officials say the ticket was sold at Jenny's Mini Mart in Citrus Heights. The winner should go to the lottery office with the original ticket and identification. I grinned bitterly. My ticket, my winnings, and I can't get it. But wait, if the ticket was registered to my club card, as the cashier said, the thought didn't form right away. But when it did, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe I still had a chance. I grabbed my phone and dialed the lottery hotline number listed on the screen. After a few minutes of waiting, a pleasant female voice answered, West Coast Lottery Support, how may I help you? Hello, I began, trying to speak calmly. I'd like to find out about the procedure for claiming my winnings. Sure, did you win? Maybe, I answered cautiously. But the ticket, not exactly in my possession. It was stolen. There was a pause. That's a serious allegation, ma'am. In cases like this, we need a formal report to the police. I already did, but they can't help without proof, I explained. I used my club card to buy the ticket. Can that be proof? Indeed, all tickets purchased with a club card are registered in the system, the operator confirmed. If you give me your card number, I can verify the information. With trembling hands, I took out a shabby plastic card from my wallet and dictated the number. Just a minute, the woman asked. I could hear her typing something on the keyboard. Yes, I see a lottery ticket purchased last week. She was silent for a second. The combination of numbers matches the winning number from the last draw. My heart quickened. Does that mean the ticket is registered in my name? That's correct, Mrs. Burrows. The ticket is registered in the name of Juliana Burrows. You can't collect the winnings without the original ticket, but neither can anyone else without you. The relief I felt at that moment was almost physical. Randall and Chloe won't be able to embezzle my winnings, at least not as easily as they thought. What am I supposed to do now? I asked. I would recommend to contact a lawyer who specializes in such cases, advised the operator. In the meantime, we can make a note in the system about your situation. If someone tries to win with this ticket, they will be stopped for additional verification. Thanking the woman, I hung up the phone, and for the first time in the last 2 days, I felt that control over the situation was returning to me. I had a trump card. My next step was to call a lawyer. I selected the nearest law firm from an online directory and made an appointment for a consultation the next day. My cash would be enough to pay for an hour of the lawyer's time. Not much, but probably enough to realize my chances. In the evening, I made my way out to a small restaurant across the street from the motel. It was nothing fancy, just an ordinary diner with plastic tables and a neon sign. But sitting in the dingy room was unbearable. I ordered a cup of coffee and a slice of apple pie and sat by the window, watching the cars go by and thinking about how strange my life had gotten. Until a week ago, I was a respected mother of a family with a home and some stability. Now I'm homeless, betrayed by my own son, living in a cheap motel. But maybe for the first time in a long time, I felt free. No more pretending everything was okay. No more having to endure humiliation for the sake of family peace. I could finally start living for myself, even if I had to start practically from scratch. My phone rang, interrupting my musings. Randall's name popped up on the screen. I hesitated to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Dash dash yes question mark, I said dryly. Dash dash mom question mark. Randall's voice sounded tense. Where are you? What does it matter? I answered the question with a question. You made it clear you didn't want to see me. Look, we overreacted. He sounded a little ingratiating. Could you come home? We need to talk. About what? I tried to keep my voice calm, even though my heart was pounding like crazy. About how you stole my ticket? Or how you kicked me out of the house I helped pay for? Mom, please, no drama. He sighed. There's been a misunderstanding. We can talk about this like adults. Misunderstanding? I couldn't believe his insolence. You call stealing and eviction a misunderstanding? Okay, I was wrong, he suddenly admitted. Chloe and I overreacted, but you have to understand that amount of money. It could throw anyone off balance. I was silent, waiting for him to continue. Anyway, we'd like to make it up to you, Randall continued after a pause. Why don't you come home and we can talk about it? Why, Randall? I asked bluntly. What's changed? He sighed again, heavier this time. All right, I'll tell it like it is. We tried to claim the winnings, but the lottery company said the ticket was registered in your name. We can't get the money without you. So, that's it. No remorse, no concern for me, just an inability to get the money without my help. I almost laughed at the predictability of the situation. So, what do you suggest? I asked, trying not to let my voice betray emotion. We're willing to compromise, Randall answered quickly. Half for you, half for us. Fair, fair. After everything they'd done? I shook my head, though he couldn't see it. I'll think about it. Mom, don't drag this out, he said, a hint of irritation in his voice. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that someone will find out we won. We're already getting harassed by reporters. I said I'd think about it, I said more firmly, and I'll call you back. I hung up without waiting for an answer. Sitting in a half-empty restaurant with a cold coffee, I thought about the situation. I had a chance. They couldn't get the money without me, and I couldn't get it without the ticket. An impasse that could only be resolved through negotiation. But I was no longer a naive old lady willing to believe any promises for the sake of family peace. This time, I would play by my own rules. The next morning, I met with a lawyer, a young woman named Vanessa Q, who specialized in family disputes. After hearing my story, she tapped her pen thoughtfully on her notebook. It's not an easy situation, she admitted, but not hopeless. The fact that the ticket is registered in your name is a strong argument. You can sue for the ticket back or, if they've already cashed it, for damages. They can't get the money without me, I explained. The lottery company confirmed it. All the better, Vanessa nodded. It gives you an advantage in negotiations. However, the legal process could take months, if not years, and it will cost a lot. I don't have that kind of money, I admitted. In cases like this, we often work for a percentage of the winnings, she suggested. If you agree to 25% of what we can recover, I'll take your case. I hesitated. A quarter of $45 million is over $10 million, a huge amount for legal fees. On the other hand, without help, I had no chance of getting anything at all. I need to think about it, I said finally. My son had offered me a compromise half for him, half for me. Vanessa shook her head. After what they did, I wouldn't recommend it. They've already shown they'll do anything for money. Who guarantees they'll keep their word? She was right. Randall and Chloe already betrayed me once. Why would they stop? Let's do it this way, the lawyer suggested. I'll prepare all the necessary documents for a lawsuit. If you decide to settle with your son, we won't file them, but you'll have them as a backup in case negotiations stall. That sounded reasonable. I agreed and spent the next hour giving Vanessa all the information she needed to prepare the documents. Leaving her office, I felt more confident. I now had a plan and professional support. That evening, Randall called again. This time his tone was less friendly. "We're waiting to hear from you, Mom," he said without preamble. "Do you accept our offer?" "I'm still thinking," I replied. "And by the way, I consulted with a lawyer. She thinks I have a good chance of getting my winnings back through the courts." There was a pause. Then I heard muffled voices. Apparently, Randall was discussing the situation with Chloe. "Are you threatening us?" His voice turned cold. "No, I was just informing him of my options," I answered calmly. "Like you said, let's discuss it like adults." There was another pause and muffled conversation. "Okay," Randall finally said. "Let's meet and talk about this in person. Come home by 6 o'clock tomorrow night." "No," I said firmly. "Not home. I'll be there, but we'll meet somewhere neutral. The Blue Cup Cafe on Maple Street, 4 o'clock." "Why go to all that trouble?" I could hear the irritation in his voice. "We're family." "That's exactly why," I replied. "A family doesn't kick each other out of the house and steal from each other. Cafe at 4, and come both of you, with Chloe. I want all the terms to be agreed upon in front of witnesses." "Okay," he grudgingly agreed. 4 o'clock at the Blue Cup. I hung up the phone and exhaled. It wasn't going to be an easy conversation, but I was ready for it. No more concessions, no more compromises for the sake of family peace. They wanted to play dirty. Well, I could do the same. I was at the cafe by the appointed time, having chosen a table in the corner from where I could see the entrance. I ordered tea and waited, glancing nervously at my watch. At exactly 4, the door opened, and Randall and Chloe walked in. They looked around, spotted me, and headed over to my table. Randall looked tense. Chloe looked annoyed. Neither of them even bothered to act happy to see me. "Hi, Mom," Randall said dryly, sitting down across from me. Chloe silently took the seat next to him. "You look good." "Thank you," I replied just as dryly. "It's nice to hear, considering I've been living in a motel since you kicked me out of the house." Chloe rolled her eyes. "Let's not have any drama. We're here to discuss money, not to wash our dirty laundry." I looked at my sister-in-law carefully. I had once tried to find good in her, to convince myself that she made my son happy. Now all I saw was greed and cold calculation. "Okay," I agreed. "Let's talk about the money. You're suggesting we split the winnings in half. I'm willing to consider it, but with some conditions." They looked at each other. Randall asked cautiously, "What conditions?" "First, I want all my belongings that were left in the house returned to me. Second, I want the original ticket to present to the lottery company. Third, I want it legally, with a contract that guarantees me my share." "That sounds reasonable," Randall said slowly, though I could tell by the look on his face that he was expecting something more complicated. "One last thing," I added. "I want you to admit that the ticket is mine, that you stole it, and that you kicked me out illegally. Not in court, just here, between us." "What kind of nonsense is that?" Minus Chloe snorted. "What does it matter who admits what? The main thing is the money." "It matters to me," I said firmly. "I want to hear the truth." Randall hesitated, looking at his wife, then at me. "Okay," he said at last. "The ticket is yours. You bought it. It was wrong of me to take it without asking." "Stealing it," I corrected him. "Stealing it," he agreed reluctantly. "And yes, we shouldn't have kicked you out of the house. It was rash." "Cruel," I corrected him again. "It was cruel, Randall." He was silent, not looking me in the eye. Chloe looked like she was ready to explode, but she was holding back. "Okay, now let's talk specifics," I said, pulling a notebook out of my bag. "When and how do we get the winnings? How will the money be divided? Who will pay the taxes? We spent the next hour discussing the details. I insisted that everything be handled through lawyers to avoid possible fraud. Randall agreed, although it was obvious that he didn't like the idea of involving lawyers. Chloe was mostly silent, occasionally inserting remarks about how important it was to do everything quickly and without unnecessary publicity. "When do we get the ticket?" Randall asked, when all the main points were agreed upon. "We need to apply for the winnings as soon as possible." "As soon as all the documents are prepared and signed," I replied. "My attorney is already working on the contract. I think it should be ready in a couple days." "2 days?" Chloe grumbled unhappily. "Couldn't it be faster?" "No," I cut her off. "I won't rush with such an important matter. 2 days is the minimum." Seeing that I was not going to give in, they reluctantly agreed. We agreed to meet in 2 days at my lawyer's office to sign all the documents and further actions to get the winnings. As the meeting came to an end and we were about to leave, Randall suddenly asked, "Mom, where do you live now? Maybe you should come home, at least for these 2 days?" I looked at him in surprise. Did he really have a conscience? Or was this just another manipulation? "Thank you, but no," I replied. "I'll stay at the motel until I can afford something better. And after I get my winnings, I plan to buy my own place, away from Citrus Heights." "Suit yourself," Randall shrugged, but there was something like regret in his eyes. We parted, agreeing to call back tomorrow to finalize the details of the meeting. I watched them as they left the cafe, my son and his wife, two people who had betrayed me for money and now had to negotiate with me because they couldn't do without my help. A strange sense of satisfaction swept over me. Not gloating, no, but rather a certainty that there was justice after all, even if it's in this perverse form. I ordered another cup of tea and sat for a long time, looking out the window at the passing cars, thinking about the upcoming changes in my life. The money would give me a freedom and independence I had never dreamed of, but it would never bring back the son I'd lost if he'd ever been the man I loved. But maybe, for the first time in years, I can start living for myself instead of for others. And that thought, against all odds, gave me hope. 2 days passed unexpectedly quickly. I consulted with Vanessa on the phone, discussing the details of the upcoming agreement. She'd insisted that the meeting be held in her office, but Randall had called the day before and said he wanted to meet at home, in a family setting. I tried to object, but he wouldn't listen. "Mom, the kids miss you," he said, with that special tone he used when he wanted to convince me of something. "They keep asking when Grandma's coming back. Chloe even baked your favorite apple pie. Just come home and we'll talk about it in a calm, family way." I had my doubts. Randall's house didn't seem like a safe place anymore, but the thought of seeing my grandchildren outweighed my fears. Besides, what could they do? The winnings weren't available without my involvement anyway. "Okay," I finally agreed. "But I'll come with the paperwork from my lawyer, and I want everything signed before we take the next step." "Sure, Mom," Randall agreed too quickly. "Whatever you say. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. On the morning of the meeting, I called Vanessa again. She wasn't happy about the change of plan. "Mrs. Barrows, I strongly suggest you insist on neutral ground," she said. "Going back to the house you were kicked out of can be emotionally difficult. Plus, it gives them an advantage." "I know," I sighed, "but they're using the kids to lure me in. And let's face it, I miss my grandchildren." "I understand," Vanessa said softly. "In that case, here's my advice. Keep the documents to yourself until the last moment. Don't show them the contract until you're sure they're ready to sign it. And take a copy of your conversation with the lottery company, confirming that the ticket is registered in your name." "I have that information," I confirmed. "Good. And be prepared that they may try to change the terms at the last minute. Don't agree to any changes without consulting me. I promised to follow her advice and, hanging up the phone, began to pack. Opening my bag, I checked to make sure all my documents were in place. The contract to split the winnings equally, a printout of my conversation with the lottery company, and a copy of my Minimart club card. Everything was in place. The cab pulled up to Randall's house at exactly 17 o'clock. I paid the driver, asking him to wait literally 5 minutes. He nodded, but I could see in his face that he didn't believe the brevity of my visit. And he was right. As I got out of the car, I stood still for a moment, looking at the familiar house with its neat lawn. My guest house stood to the right, small and cozy, with an ivy-covered veranda. I remembered planting roses there, drinking my morning coffee, and watching the hummingbirds come to the feeder. It all seemed so far away now. The door swung open before I could even ring the bell. Ethan, my youngest grandson, stood on the doorstep with a big smile on his face. "Grandma!" he exclaimed, and threw himself around my neck. I hugged him, feeling my eyes fill with tears. How much I missed this little man. "Hi, sweetie," I whispered, kissing the top of his head. "How are you?" "I'm good. I got a new robot. Do you want to see it?" He grabbed my hand, trying to pull me into the house. "Later, honey," I promised. "I need to talk to your parents first." "They're in the kitchen," Ethan informed me. "Mom's baking a pie and Dad's pretending to help." I smiled at his observation. Children often see the truth clearer than adults. In the hallway, Alice, my 10-year-old granddaughter, ran up to me. She was more reserved than her brother, but still gave me a big hug. "Hi, Grandma," she said. "Are you back for good?" That simple question caught me off guard. I didn't know what my parents had told them about my sudden disappearance. "I don't know yet, honey," I answered honestly, "but I missed you very much." "We missed you too," Alice said earnestly. "Daddy's dinner last night was impossible to eat. He even burned the cereal and milk." I laughed, despite the tension. Randall's culinary talents had always been a family joke. The aroma of apples and cinnamon wafted from the kitchen. I inhaled deeply, recognizing the smell of my signature pie. Chloe had never baked it before, thinking it too simple and old-fashioned. I wondered where she got the recipe from. "Mom," Randall appeared in the hallway smiling broadly. "You've come." He came over and hugged me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't kicked me out of the house less than a week ago. I let myself be hugged, but I didn't reciprocate. My heart no longer responded to his fake warmth. "Kids, go play," Randall said, pulling away. "Grandma and I need to talk about grown-up things." Ethan and Alice reluctantly retreated to the living room, and Randall led me into the kitchen. There, leaning over the oven, was Chloe. When she saw me, she straightened up and smiled strainedly. "Juliana, it's good to see you," she said in that special tone that she used only in front of strangers. "I'm just taking out the pie, your favorite, with apples and cinnamon." "I see," I nodded. "I didn't know you knew how to make it." "Oh, I found the recipe in your cookbook," Chloe admitted, pulling the browned pie out of the oven. "I hope it turned out like yours, my cookbook." So they'd been going through other things besides my tin box. I felt a pang of irritation, but I tried to hide it. "Have a seat, Mom." Randall pointed to the kitchen table, which was already set for tea. "Would you like coffee or tea?" "Tea, please," I said, sitting down in the chair he offered. "And let's get down to business. I don't have much time." "What's your hurry?" Randall asked, pouring tea into my cup. "You just got here." "I have a cab waiting," I said. And besides, we agreed to discuss the division of the winnings, not to have a family tea party. Chloe and Randall looked at each other. Their game of being hospitable hosts wasn't working as they'd hoped. "Okay," Randall sat down across from me, and Chloe sat next to him, placing a piece of pie on the table, which I politely declined. Let's talk about this like adults. I brought the contract, I said, taking the documents out of my bag. It provides for an equal division of the winnings between me and you. After taxes, each side will receive about 15 million. Yeah, about that, Randall began, glancing at his wife again. We've been thinking about it, and we've decided that an equal division isn't exactly fair. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. You see, there are three of us, me, Chloe, and the kids, and you're alone. So we suggest a fairer distribution, 90% for us, 10% for you. I almost laughed at the absurdity of the proposal. And how is it fairer? I asked, trying to remain calm. Well, we have a family, children to raise, education to pay for, a house to maintain, Randall began. And you, at your age, how much do you need? 4.5 million is more than enough to live out my remaining years in comfort. My remaining years. He made it sound like I had one foot in the grave. I was only 67, and I was planning to live at least 20 more years, active and interesting. No, I said firmly. I do not agree to such a distribution. The ticket is mine. I bought it. I chose the winning numbers. If we're going to be fair, the winnings should be all mine. But we are a family, Chloe intervened with a strained smile. Don't you want to help your grandchildren? I do, I nodded. That's why I proposed to divide the winnings equally, instead of keeping it all for myself. But 10% isn't serious. Randall sighed, his mask of friendliness beginning to crack. Mom, be reasonable. We can just not give you the ticket, then no one will get the money. In that case, I'll file a lawsuit through my attorney, I replied calmly. The lottery company confirmed that the ticket is registered in my name. Sooner or later, I'll get it back. It'll just take longer. Time, money, nerves. Randall shook his head. Why complicate things? Just accept our offer and everyone will be happy. Everyone but me, I objected. 50-50, Randall. This is my final offer. Chloe, who had been relatively calm before, suddenly exploded. Who are you to give us conditions? She exclaimed, her face contorted with rage. You've been living off us for years, meddling in our lives, making us villains in front of our children. And now that the money's coming in, you want to take half of it for yourself? Chloe, Randall said warningly, but she didn't stop. No, let her know. We put up with her out of pity. We took her handouts to make her feel needed, and now she thinks she's important just because she accidentally bought a winning ticket. I silently listened to this stream of insults, wondering how I could not notice the real nature of my sister-in-law before. Or maybe I just didn't want to see the truth, preferring to live with illusions of a happy family. If you don't agree to our terms, Chloe continued, pointing her finger at me, you'll never see grandchildren again. Never, do you hear? That's enough. I stood up from the table, keeping surprisingly calm for myself. I can see that we're not going to have a constructive conversation. I have to go. Sit down, Randall suddenly ordered in a tone that made me freeze. You're not going anywhere until we settle this. We've got the ticket, and you'll get nothing without our consent. What do you suggest? I asked, remaining standing. Keep me here by force? That would be kidnapping, Randall. Don't be so dramatic, he said. Just sit down and let's talk about terms we can all agree on. I sank back into my chair, deciding to change tactics. Okay, let's think about this again, I said conciliatorily. But first, I'd like to ask one question. What is it? Randall asked warily. Did you guys even read whose name is on this lottery ticket? I asked with a slight smile. They looked at each other puzzled. There's no name on the ticket, Randall said slowly. It's just a piece of paper with numbers on it. Oh, is that so? I pulled the printout of my conversation with the lottery company out of my bag. Then why does it say the ticket is registered to Juliana Burrows? I put the document on the table and pushed it toward Randall. He grabbed the sheet, quickly ran his eyes over the text, then handed it to Chloe. I could see from their faces that they were gradually realizing the meaning of what they were reading. What does it mean? Chloe asked, her voice suddenly losing confidence. It means, I explained calmly, that when I bought the ticket, I used my club card from Jenny's Mini Market. All purchases made with that card are automatically registered in my name, including lottery tickets. I pulled another document out of my bag, a copy of my club card with my name and number on it. In other words, I continued, enjoying the look of shock on their faces. Even if you have a physical ticket, only Juliana Barrows can claim the winnings. That would be me, or a person with a notarized power of attorney from me. Randall turned pale, and Chloe opened and closed her mouth like a fish thrown on the shore. They obviously hadn't expected such a turn of events. But, began Randall, we could just show the ticket and say that we found it, and the lottery company will check to see if it was registered in someone else's name. I finished for him. And when they find out it was, they'll ask for ID. Do you have my ID, Randall? He was silent, realizing the hopelessness of the situation. Besides, I added, I've already notified the lottery company that the ticket was stolen. They made a notation in the system. Any attempt to claim the winnings without me will trigger an additional check. You're bluffing, Chloe squeezed out, but her voice was shaking. Check, I shrugged. Call the lottery company right now and ask if Randall Burrows can get the winnings on a ticket bought with a Juliana Burrows Club card. They glanced over again, this time with panic in their eyes. Checkmate. So, I said, returning to a businesslike tone, we have two options. One, you give me the ticket, I get all the winnings, and I'm out of your life forever. The second, we sign a contract on equal division of the winnings. I receive the money in your presence and transfer your share to the specified account. Isn't there a third option? Randall asked hoarsely. There is, I nodded. You don't cooperate, I sue you. And we spend several years and a lot of money on lawyers. In the end, I still get a win, but it's already significantly reduced due to legal fees and inflation. Take your pick. There was a heavy silence. Randall stared at the table. Chloe glared at me with a hateful look. I waited quietly, knowing that time was on my side. Finally, Randall raised his head and looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Anger, respect, humility? You've thought of everything, he said. When did you become so calculating? When I realized I was being used by my own children, I answered honestly. Nothing changes a person like betrayal by someone close to you. These words seemed to hurt him because he looked away. Chloe, on the contrary, straightened up and lifted her chin. We choose the second option, she said sharply. Half for us, half for you, but on the condition that you never tell the kids about what happened here. I thought about it. Of course, I wasn't going to traumatize my grandchildren with stories about their parents' greed, but to demand my silence in exchange for what was already rightfully mine? I won't tell them specifically about our differences, I said carefully. But I wouldn't lie if they asked. They deserve to know the truth when they grow up. Randall sighed heavily. Okay, he said. Give me your contract. I pulled out the document Vanessa had drawn up and put it in front of them. Randall began to read, frowning at certain points, but not objecting. Chloe read over his shoulder, her face gradually changing from anger to humility. We need to consult a lawyer, Randall said when he finished reading. Of course, I agreed. Take a copy of the contract and show it to your lawyer, but keep in mind that any major changes must be cleared with my lawyer. How much time do we have to think about it? Chloe asked, in a more business-like tone. Until tomorrow night, I answered. The longer we delay, the more likely it is that the information about the winnings will be leaked to the press. I don't think either of us wants the attention. They nodded in agreement. Publicity was the last thing they wanted. Now, if you don't mind, I said, getting up from the table, I'd like to say goodbye to my grandchildren before I go. Of course. Randall rose as well. They're in the living room. Ethan and Alice were sitting on the couch, engrossed in some video game. When they saw me, they put down their controllers and ran over to hug me. Are you leaving already? Ethan asked disappointedly. But you just got here. I have to go, sweetie. I stroked his head. But I'll be back soon, I promise. When? Alice, always the more practical of the two, asked demandingly. Very soon, I assured her. In the meantime, be good and obey your parents, okay? They nodded reluctantly, and I hugged them again, breathing in the familiar baby smell of shampoo and peppermint gum. God, I miss them so much. I'll walk you out, Randall said as I headed for the exit. He was awkwardly shuffling from foot to foot on the porch, clearly wanting to say something. Mom, he started, but he stopped, searching for words. I don't know how we got to this point. Neither do I, Randall, I said honestly. But we made it, and now we have to move on. He nodded, avoiding my gaze. You're really not coming back to live with us, even after we signed the contract? I looked at the house where I'd spent the last 3 years, at my little guest house with the veranda, at the rose bushes I'd planted myself. I had once thought this was where I would grow old, surrounded by a loving family. Now I knew it was just an illusion. No, Randall, I said softly. I'm not going back. Some things can't be fixed with money or apologies. Trust is one of them. He nodded silently, and in that nod, I saw the final acknowledgement that our relationship would never be the same. We were strangers, bound only by a shared past and formal ties of kinship. I'll see you tomorrow, I said, walking down the steps to the cab waiting for me. See you tomorrow, Mom, he said, and I could hear the regret in his voice. But whether he was sorry for what he'd done or for not getting all the money, I didn't know, and frankly, I didn't want to know. The cab pulled away, carrying me away from the house that was no longer mine. There was a new life ahead of me, unknown but full of possibilities. And most importantly, it would be my life, not a shadow of someone else's. Getting the winnings turned out to be a complicated but surprisingly formal process. After Randall reluctantly returned the ticket to me, having made several copies beforehand, as if that would do anything, I went to the lottery company with Vanessa as the accompanying lawyer. The procedure took almost all day, verifying my identity, filling out dozens of forms, discussing payout options, consulting with financial experts. I opted for a lump sum instead of 20 years of payments. Yes, it meant losing about 30% of the amount due to taxes, but at my age, long-term plans didn't seem like the smartest decision. I refused to be photographed with a giant cardboard check, despite the insistence of the lottery officials. I didn't want publicity. I didn't want my sedate world shattered by curious and sensation-hungry journalists. Fortunately, in this state, winners were allowed to remain anonymous, which I did. 2 weeks after my visit to the lottery company, the money arrived in my new bank account, almost $32 million after taxes. According to the contract, I was supposed to transfer half of it to Randall and Chloe's account, which I did that same day, accompanied by a short message, "Your share. Good luck." From that moment on, my new life began. The first thing I did was move from the motel to a decent hotel downtown. A suite overlooking the city park was a new luxury for me. I remember standing at the panoramic window, looking out at the green massif below, and feeling a strange sense of unreality. Just a month ago, I was living in an annex to my son's house, counting every dollar. Now I could afford almost anything. For a week, I just relaxed. I ordered food to my room, read books that I wanted to read for a long time, but did not find time, watched movies, walked in the park. I let myself forget about all the problems and focus only on myself for the first time in years. And then the calls started. First from Randall, creepy, cautious. Mom, how are you? The kids and I miss you. I'm fine, Randall. Just getting settled in. Why don't you come over for dinner? Alice has been asking about you. I politely declined invitations, saying I was busy. Then Chloe called. Her calls were more direct. Julianne, we need to discuss the children's future. We're thinking about an education fund. She was clearly expecting me to give her extra money on top of the share she'd already paid. I said I'd think about it, but I was only thinking about how to end the conversation as quickly as possible. When it became clear that neither ingratiating nor direct approaches were working, they turned to threats. 2 weeks after the payment, I received a call from Randall and Chloe's lawyer, a Mr. Parker, informing me that they intend to challenge the contract on the division of the winnings. On what grounds? I asked, not hiding my surprise. My clients believe that they signed it under duress, he answered dryly. Besides, they want compensation for the years of taking care of you. I almost laughed into the phone. Care? They call that caring? Tell your clients that all further contact must go through my attorney, I said and hung up. Vanessa assured me that the contract was flawless and there was no reason to challenge it, especially since Randall and Chloe had already received their share and were actively spending it, judging by the news on social networks, which I sometimes look through out of curiosity. New house, new cars, exotic vacations. They didn't waste any time. A month after winning, I found the perfect place to live, a spacious apartment in a new complex overlooking the very park I'd observed from my hotel window. 3 bedrooms, a large living room with panoramic windows, a modern kitchen, and most importantly, a huge balcony where I could grow flowers. I bought it without a mortgage, paying the price in full, which made the realtor genuinely surprised. Usually only investors buy like that, she said. I'm a kind of investor too, I smiled. I'm investing in my own comfort. Furnishing the new apartment was a real therapy for me. I chose every detail of the interior, every piece of furniture with the utmost care. No compromises, no, okay, that's fine. Only what I really liked. Light colors, comfortable furniture, lots of live plants and space. The kind of home I'd always envisioned but could never afford. 2 months later, the apartment was ready, and I threw a small housewarming party. I invited Vanessa, who had become not only my lawyer, but also a friend of sorts, my neighbor Martha, a cheerful lady my age, with whom we quickly hit it off, and a few new acquaintances from the gardening club I'd joined. The absence of Randall, Chloe, and the grandchildren from my housewarming party caused a few questioning looks, but I simply said they had other plans. It was a lie I decided to allow myself for the sake of keeping the festive atmosphere. I hadn't actually invited them, not wanting to cloud the start of a new life with memories of betrayal. I saw the grandchildren, of course. Randall regularly brought them to my house on Saturday, left them for a few hours, and then left on his own. I was glad of this time, though the first meetings were awkward. The kids clearly didn't understand why Grandma no longer lived with them, but lived in a big, beautiful apartment like rich people. Are you rich now, Grandma? Alice asked me bluntly during one of the visits. I have enough money to live the way I want to live, I answered cautiously. Daddy said you won the lottery, she continued. Lots and lots of money. Yes, I was lucky, I confirmed. Why don't you live with us if you have a lot of money? Ethan asked this question, having taken his eyes off the tablet. I didn't want to lie to my grandchildren, but I wasn't going to tell them the whole truth either. Sometimes adults need space to live their lives, I said. I love you very much and will always be here for you, but I need my own home. They accepted this explanation with childlike directness and quickly turned to exploring my new apartment, especially the balcony with the colorful flowers and the little fountain. With Randall, our relationship became purely formal. He brought and picked up the kids, sometimes asked how I was doing, but never went further than the hallway. Chloe stopped appearing at all after their lawyer received an official letter from Vanessa demanding to stop trying to challenge the contract. About 6 months after the win, Lena, a 12-year-old girl from the apartment below, came into my life. I met her in the elevator as she was returning from school with a heavy backpack and a music portfolio. We got to talking, and it turned out that she was in music school, playing the violin, but might lose her place in the program because of her family's financial problems. Mom says she has no money for the next semester, Lena said sadly, and I want to keep studying so badly. I invited her to my house for tea after calling her mom to introduce myself and get permission, and we had a long talk about music and her dreams of becoming a professional violinist. The next day, I went to the music school and set up a small scholarship fund for talented children from families with limited income. The first scholarship recipient was Lena. I told her mother that the school had found a sponsor for the program. Technically, that was true. It was just that I was the sponsor. After that, Lena became a frequent visitor to my apartment. She would come over after school, do her homework at my kitchen table, and sometimes play the violin for me. Her mother, Karina, a lonely woman who worked as a nurse in the local hospital, was shy at first, but gradually began to come over for a cup of tea. We became friends, and soon they both became a kind of family for me. No obligations, no manipulation, just a warm human relationship, which I lacked. As time went on, I started traveling. At first, not far away, neighboring states, picturesque small towns that I read about in magazines. Then further afield, Europe, Asia, South America. I didn't seek luxury, preferring cozy boutique hotels and local cuisine to posh chain hotels and haute cuisine restaurants. I wanted to see real life, not a glossy cover for tourists. From each trip, I brought back souvenirs for Alice and Ethan, for Lena and Karina, for my new friends from the gardening club. My apartment gradually filled up with memorabilia from different parts of the world, each of which told its own story. One day, returning from a 3-week trip to Japan, I found in my mailbox an official letter from Randall's attorney. It notified me that my son and his wife had filed a lawsuit to declare me incapacitated and demanded that Randall be appointed to manage my finances due to age and observed signs of cognitive decline. I sat on the couch rereading this absurd accusation and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They never gave up trying to get their hands on my money, even if it meant declaring me crazy. The next day, I met with Vanessa, and we worked out a plan of action. I underwent a full medical examination, including a cognitive evaluation, the results of which were flawless. We prepared a counterclaim for defamation and filed a complaint against Randall's attorney for unethical behavior. I also amended my will to completely exclude my son and daughter-in-law. In their place, I named my grandchildren, with the stipulation that they would only have access to the money when they reached the age of 21. 25, Lena to pay for her conservatory tuition, and several charitable organizations dedicated to helping elderly people who were victims of financial abuse by relatives. When Randall learned of my countersuit and the changes in the will, he tried to backpedal, calling me personally, telling me that Chloe insisted it was all Chloe's doing, that he himself was against it, that he was willing to drop the lawsuit if we just sat down and talked like reasonable people. "It's too late, Randall," I told him. "You crossed the line, twice." "What do you mean?" There was genuine confusion in his voice. "The first time was when you kicked me out of the house and stole my ticket. The second time, he tried to declare me crazy to get my money. Mom, that's not true, he started, but I interrupted. Please don't call me again, I said calmly. All contact is through lawyers. And yes, I would like to continue to see my grandchildren, but only in the presence of a neutral party. After that conversation, our Cold War became official. Randall withdrew the incapacity suit, but at the same time, he restricted my visits with my grandchildren. I now saw them only once a month, in the presence of a social worker. It was painful, but I realized that for their sake, it was better to have infrequent but quality meetings than constant conflict between me and their parents. A year after winning, I decided to return to my old hobby, landscaping. Not for money, of course, but for the soul. I started with a project of landscaping the inner courtyard of our apartment complex, then took on the territory of the local elementary school. The work brought me great pleasure and the gratitude of children, who now played among beautiful plants instead of bare asphalt, was the best reward. Gradually, I was approached with proposals for other projects, landscaping the hospital courtyard, creating a mini park near the nursing home, arranging public flower beds in the city. I never took money for this work, but insisted on quality materials and plants, which I often paid for myself. It became my way of giving something back to the community, of making the world around me a little more beautiful. One day, while working on a city park project, I met Neil, an architect about my age, a widower with mild manners and a subtle sense of humor. We began to cooperate. I did landscaping. He designed small architectural forms. Gradually, our professional communication grew into friendship and then into something more. At my age, starting a romantic relationship was strange and a little scary, but at the same time, surprisingly fresh and exciting. You know, Neil said to me one day as we sat on my balcony, watching the sunset over the park, it's never too late to start living for yourself. Those words resonated in me with a deep understanding. Indeed, it's never too late. Even at 67, even after the betrayal of loved ones, even after it seems like the best part of life is behind us. On my 68th birthday, I threw a big party at my apartment. All my new friends came, Marta and her husband, Karina and Lena, Neil, neighbors, colleagues from landscaping, even a few teachers from Lena's music school. I looked at them, so different but equally sincere in their affection for me, and thought about how my life had changed over the year. Yes, winning the lottery had given me financial freedom, but real wealth came not with money, but with the realization of my own worth. I was no longer an appendage to someone else's life, no longer an ATM machine or a free babysitter. I was Juliana Barrows, a woman who had finally learned to value herself and her desires. That evening, when all the guests had gone and Neil and I were alone, I told him the whole story, the betrayal of my son, the theft of the ticket, the attempts to declare me incompetent. He listened intently, not interrupting, only occasionally shaking his head in surprise. "And you have no regrets?" he asked when I was done. About breaking up with my son? I wondered. Of course I missed the real family closeness, the chance to see my grandchildren every day, the relationship with Randall that I thought we'd had before we won. I thought we had before we won? But I realized now that that relationship had always been one-sided. I wish I'd seen the truth sooner, I replied. That I'd let myself be a pawn in someone else's game for so long. But I don't regret finally starting to appreciate myself, even if it took such an upheaval to do so. Neil took my hand and squeezed it gently. You know what I appreciate most about you? Your ability to not harden yourself despite everything that's happened. You could have shut down, become cynical, but instead you opened up to the world, made new friends, started helping others. Maybe that's my way of healing. I smiled, creating beauty where it is lacking, whether it's a garden, a friendship, or just a kind act. That night, lying in bed and listening to the quiet breathing of Neil sleeping next to me, I thought about the strange twists and turns of fate. If Randall and Chloe hadn't kicked me out of the house, if they hadn't stolen my ticket, I might have continued to live in the illusion of a family idyll, giving them everything and getting nothing in return. Their cruelty paradoxically set me free. Money gave me a choice, but it was the trauma of betrayal that forced me to use that choice. Starting a new life at 67 is scary, but possible, especially when you realize that the alternative is to continue living someone else's life, to be a shadow instead of a person. I fell asleep with a thought that has now become my personal motto. It's never too late to start valuing yourself, even if your own family doesn't. And perhaps it is this realization that is the most valuable gain of all.